20 years from now, what is the cryptocurrency space going to look like, and what other industries, markets will have taken on, not only the blockchain, but the technology? You talked about real estate earlier and other ownership pieces. Realistically, or should we be looking about 40 years from now? But what about 20?
I think actually you have to go in the opposite direction. Making predictions 20 years out is too difficult because you can't extrapolate anymore. We can see the immediately obvious things. Anything that involves cross-border settlement, trust, payment networks, settlement and clearing of transactions in finance, equities, asset registration and transfer of title or property or ownership. All of these things will be affected, and affected deeply. Now, I can't guarantee that Bitcoin is going to be the solution, although it's got a pretty good straight run out of the gate right now, and it's survived 6 years, which gives it a really good chance. But the blockchain technology, the underlying consensus mechanism, the Nakamoto invention, this thing is not being uninvented. And even if one iteration of it failed, you can build as many as you want. There's already 750 other currencies based on the same recipe. The world of finance, the world of currency, the world of transactional trust, the world of payments changed on January of 2009 when Bitcoin was launched. The world will never be the same again. It may take decades, but in the next 5 years, we're already going to see applications of this across finance. The financial industry is going to get disrupted seriously, just like the telecommunication industry got disrupted very seriously by the internet. That we can predict. Now the question then goes to, once you get a level of adoption that has high enough density, which means that many people around you are also using the same thing, which means you have more opportunities to use it. Just like after about 1995, more and more people started having email addresses, so you could do a lot more with email, which meant the more people wanted email addresses, and then with the web 3 years later, once you get to mobile internet and fully deployed internet, the applications change. Now, something like Twitter that was impossible before becomes possible. Facebook becomes possible. BitTorrent becomes possible, MP3 becomes possible, and these start toppling other industries. They start changing the game in areas that you could never imagine because they're not about a telecom revolution anymore. They're about a broader thing, which is the dissemination of information. They're about communication, they're about media, entertainment, news, truth, all of these other things. And suddenly you see several foundational institutions of society changing radically. Well, finance is the first thing that Bitcoin does, but as Bitcoin adoption spreads in density, then you start getting these secondary effects, and these we really can't predict. But I'll just give you a little snippet, right? We're already seeing Bitcoin do micropayments, but micropayments on a scale we've never seen before. With Bitcoin, you can now pay a millionth of a penny for a 200 millisecond slice of service. There's a streaming video service that allows you to pay as little as 1 Satoshi for 200 milliseconds of video. This isn't micropayments. This is pico payments, if you like. It's so tiny, and for such a short slice of time. Now, what can you do with that? It's not just streaming video or renting out Wi-Fi. You can start building completely new concepts for payments that we've never thought of before.
And then new technologies on
and
the back
then new
of that.
technologies on that. Now, what happens when you combine, here's another interesting one. Bitcoin is the first financial system in history that doesn't require personhood for ownership of money. Every single financial system we have, at the end of the day, money is owned by either a person or a collection of people as a corporation. That is a fundamental truth. It's required by the legal system. Bitcoin doesn't care. You can be software and you can own money. Software can own money. Let me say that again. Software can own money. We don't know what that does, but let me give you just one example.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.
Uber, Bitcoin, self-driving cars. Combine those three together and you have the self-owning taxi. A car that is a corporation that owns itself, pays for the car lease, the car insurance, and the gasoline from the revenues it makes, giving passengers a ride, and there's not a single human involved in that management. Now, that is a completely bizarre construct. It's one we can't even imagine at the moment. It violates several of the assumptions we make as a society about liability and legal responsibility. As long as it doesn't crash, actually, it does some really interesting things. It's a really damn good taxi in many ways. But that's just one example, and that's not something we have today, only slightly different plus Bitcoin. That's something that is impossible today. And you start opening up these branches of innovation and exploration in science that simply have no precedent. And that's where it really gets interesting. So on a 10 to 20-year horizon, you can't make any predictions anymore because there's no precedent to what you're doing. Just like in '92, you can't predict Facebook. It's impossible to predict it.
Right. That's scary. That has some like AI, fascinating, I mean, you know, pockets of growth and capitalism and businesses like the one you just described could spring up. You would never know some of these things are happening. And with these Pico payments, it's hard to even imagine the
what
things
you could do.
Yeah, the markets that would
What does it do to the sharing economy? But to me, it all goes back to this fundamental question. We live on a planet with 7.5 billion people, and 2 to 4 billion people are completely cut off from finance, and almost 5 to 6 billion people are cut off from international finance. What happens to the world economy when you bring 6 billion new people online, people who are productive but disconnected? What happens to their lives? What happens to poverty across the world when you can extend financial services, opportunity, credit, liquidity? Like even if you're in a developed nation today, where can you invest your money? Nowhere. There is nothing you can invest money in today. The real estate market is a huge bubble. You can't buy cars because that's a huge bubble. Student loans are a bubble in the US now, right? There are no investment outlets because nothing is productive. What about if you're investing in 1 billion people who are in poverty? And I could take £1,000, split it into 1,000 microloans, and join together with 1 million investors to fund those microloans. What happens then? Direct, no banks, no intermediaries, no overheads, no costs. Direct funding, developed world to developing world, person to person. From my smartphone in Trafalgar Square to a Kenyan farmer's text messaging phone, which they can then use to buy seed or stock up a small store or start a sewing business or buy a scooter and use it as a taxi service for a rural environment. That is where Bitcoin's possibility really is. The reason we cannot extend financial services to the rest of the world is not because they don't have money. It's not because they don't have productive potential. It's because banking as a series of brick and mortar, high overhead, high margin services is not scalable. But banking as an app backed by a network-based currency and system of trust scales enormously, and it can be extended into the most remote areas. I was talking to bankers from Brazil who were telling me that millions of their citizens are 100 miles from the nearest bank branch, 100 miles upstream by canoe in the Amazon basin. And yet, in the most remote areas of the Amazon basin, there are cell phone towers and there are Nokia phones, because those offer the one form of easily deployed connectivity with solar panels to even the most remote places in the world. Now turn those into banks and see what happens. And that's what they're looking at, the possibility of bringing 30 million customers online to the Brazilian banking system. Every bank in Brazil, most of Latin America, South Africa, Indonesia, Philippines is thinking about this now, because they can suddenly reach populations they've never reached before. And what does that do to our world?
Investment Club. Today, I consider it the best investment that I've ever made. We get 4 projects presented a week by their associated CEOs. Personally, I'm completely blown away by the quality of these projects, and I know of nowhere else where I would be given this same opportunity. Each week that passes, I feel more appreciative of the fact that I'm a member of this group. The vibe was just tremendous. Everybody's on the same wavelength. We just clicked. Everybody listened to each other, enjoyed their company. It was just magical, magical. Take action. Don't take my word for it. Due diligence you need to do. And I really hope that someday down the road I see you in the club. It far exceeded expectations, without question.